What's up, everyone? It's Russo. I hope everyone is doing well. So please subscribe here and please follow me on Instagram at RussoLifts. In case something happens to this channel, you can follow, message me, interact with me directly, and there's daily content on there. Hope to see you guys on Instagram. All right, what's up, everyone? It's Russo. I hope everyone is doing well. So I've been getting a lot of questions about injectable Sarms, so I wanted to ask Tony because he has probably the most experience in the world with injectable Sarms right now. So what are the actual advantages of injecting Sarms versus the Sarms we know about for the past couple years?
I can tell you what we know, and I can tell you what we hypothesize.
Okay.
So what we know real quick is that when we used them for the transformations in high dosages, including your transformation, but after you, we did some other transformations where we fine-tuned the science even more based on what we learned from each previous transformation. And we learned that high dosage of injectable Sarms can definitely, unequivocally, absolutely replace steroids. And most people would say that Sarms couldn't do that. Right. And they're basing that off the experience that they had with oral Sarms. So I'm not saying that oral Sarms can't also replace steroids in higher dosages. It might just take higher dosages. But we know for sure that injectable Sarms, if used correctly and with other elements of the anabolic matrix, can replace steroids. Now what we hypothesize is that it's much healthier. I have some evidence that injectable Sarms are much healthier, such as people just having less side effects in general when they go up and higher in the dosages. Now Coach Trevor thinks that the reason why we have less side effects is that the Sarms aren't passing through the liver as much. And it's not that they're liver toxic, it's that anytime anything passes through the liver, it can change the chemistry of it, it can break down into metabolites, and if it has any anabolic properties whatsoever, then it could have an impact on our lipid profile. So the number one concern for Sarms, because Sarms rarely cause acne, Sarms at low dosages don't cause that much shutdown, but let's say higher dosages they cause shutdown. Okay, that's some concern. Heart growth is still a concern, but less of a concern because there's less water retention on Sarms, and water retention is probably the number one culprit of heart growth. That's why steroids, growth hormone, insulin, besides just stimulating the growth of the heart itself, also directly create the pressure on the heart from the water retention around the heart, so we don't have that problem. We don't have much hair loss with Sarms. So you go down the whole negative mental effects, go down the whole list and see there's not that many side effects with Sarms, but then as you go up higher in the dosage, you do see more side effects. Then when we switch over to injectables, we're able to go to a much higher dosage with even less side effects, and that's, as I said, because of Trevor's hypothesis that things aren't happening, and it gets complicated when he explains, but things aren't happening in the liver as much that's creating downstream effects. Again, not that oral Sarms are that bad anyways, because we still don't see that many side effects, but injectable Sarms seem to have even less side effects, generally speaking.
Do you think the injectable Sarms, because I get people in my DM box who are like, Sarms are for like when you're starting out, even though I've seen Sarms used in competitive bodybuilders stacks, people seem to think like, oh, they're like an intro softcore type deal. Do you think now that the injectables are coming out, do you think that's going to change people's overall opinion on them?
Yeah, for the wrong reason probably, because people think that if you're injecting something it's more powerful, which isn't always true. If you take Anadrol and D-bol, for example, they're more powerful when you take them orally than when you inject them, because as they go through the liver, they're doing things to stimulate things like IGF, and because they break down into certain metabolites as they go through a first pass through the liver, that can be actually more potent than the actual drug itself. So I'm not saying that injectables are more powerful just because they're injectables, but everybody else is going to think that, and now they're going to start thinking, okay, if Sarms technology is increasing, at what point does it reach steroids? And I think if you just asked a random person, they would think, oh, now that it's injectable, now it reaches a level of steroids. And I know that they absolutely can replace steroids because of all the transformations we did. The most impressive one was done on just Sarms. I think we had maybe TRT, like testosterone, 200 milligrams or something. That's it. It's just a foundation. So we have some of the natural hormones of testosterone, which also converts to estrogen and DHT. But the real world results was that the Sarms put on more mass than the steroids. And then you have me, for example, who has experimented with all these different compounds in short little bursts And I know the first thing people think is I should be bigger if I've experimented with all these crazy things.
Right.
But remember, I do short bursts, and I kind of let my body come back to baseline, and then I experiment again. Plus, I don't even train that much, and I don't
I
diet.
don't think you want to be
Very
much bigger than
And
you already are.
if I start getting bigger, I actually cut it back to try to not get too big. But my experience is that there's certain steroids that I did, like Anadrol was really impressive when stacked with the right things in the right conditions for a shorter period of time. And the amount of mass Anadrol puts on is impressive, but it's highly toxic. And then you have Tressolone, which is really potent, puts on a ton of muscle. And then I'm thinking, like, of the mass gaining steroids, my first time I did Deca was pretty miraculous. I don't know why I was so sensitive that time. I've never gotten that effect since the first time, and I've tried every other brand. I'm not sure what was in it. It must have been combined with something else or mega overdose. But other than that, I'm thinking, like, what steroid gave me crazy gains that blew my mind? And it's only a couple. I'm probably leaving one out. Then I go over to Sarms, and I think, what? Sarms gave me crazy gains that blew my mind. And it was Ligandrol injection, also oral Ligandrol, going higher dosage, except for
and then
more side
Canadian
effects.
Trevor was talking about oral bioavailability of Ligandrol versus the injectable bioavailability.
Of which drug?
Ligandrol.
Oh, okay. Coach Trevor, or Canadian Coach Trevor,
Yeah.
believes that the oral bioavailability of Ligandrol is very low. Doesn't mean it doesn't work. Obviously, people are taking 10 milligrams and it's extremely effective. So even if 1 milligram is getting absorbed, that's one powerful 1 milligram steroid. But we do have other steroids. Even though that sounds so ridiculous, like only 1 milligram gets absorbed, how powerful could 1 milligram be? If you look at certain steroids, like just one example, methyltranolone, they say methyltrenin, that's measured in micrograms. And that's the most powerful thing I've ever tried. Not for building mass, but for just aggression, strength, power, like visual changes in the body, but also extremely toxic. Don't take it; it's not worth it. But just as an example, or even a low dosage of these SARMs, even if they're absorbed orally, are extremely effective. Now imagine if you take it in a form that's even just 3 times as bioavailable, how much more you're getting out of it when you inject it. And then, well, I was going to go into the half-life and all that. Like when we're taking it oral, we usually taking it twice a day or something like that to keep blood levels. Some you need to and some you don't. But in one of the injectable SARMs forms, it's time released. So we're injecting only twice a week.
So it's kind of like
we can
ester.
go way down lower on the dosage, and it's still working incredibly well. What?
It's like estered, basically.
Yeah, it's similar to being esterified, and then it takes your body time to break it down and release it. Like time release bolus in the muscle sitting there just trickling out instead of just hitting your digestive system, then your bloodstream and flushing out. And the theory of why that's better too is that whenever you take over a certain dosage, then you have more like if your hormone levels are spiking like this, every time you go over a certain point, you've reached with the law of diminishing returns and where the risk exceeds the benefit, and then you come down, and now you're not really maximally anabolic, and so the goal is to keep it level, steady levels, and that's what with the time released, it keeps you really steady.
If you push oral high dosage versus injectable high dosage, do you notice less side effects with high dosage injectable, or is it about the same?
Well, here was the weird thing. I used to take, and I don't know why, I see a lot of this stuff I experiment with, and I get this data, and then I gotta publish it and see what kind of feedback I get, because maybe someone else will understand. But when I would go really high on the oral Ligandrol dosage, I would feel hot and tired.
Yeah, so
Like the same effects
like
of taking too much steroids.
Yeah.
But when I go high on the Ligandrol injection, and you did too, right? Ligandrol was part of your stack in high dosage. I didn't feel that hot, tired, yucky feeling. I mean, we felt lethargic, but that was from the growth hormone. I don't think I felt that same sort of like overdoing it in my body anabolics. So what seems to be happening, and this is all hypothesis and theory that needs to be proven, what seems to be happening is it allows us, when we go through injection, to go at a higher dosage, or even the same dosage, but a lot more is bioavailable, with just less side effects and drain on the body. And again, it's not liver toxic, so why would oral Ligandrol cause this drain on the body feeling at super high dosage and the injectable not? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. So that was just some input on injectable SARMs. Again, I want to see what everyone has to say in the comment section. I'm going to be interested how people run their experiments and what they notice comparing, the oral to the injectable.